Hey everybody, this is Sheets, and we're going to do our first look at the DFS slate for this weekend in the UFC. And from a fan perspective, it is an insane card with some incredible matchups. And from a DFS perspective, it is a nightmare. Um, the reason it is a nightmare is the the inside the distance lines on these fights are really not that great, but the takedown upside is just insane, like throughout the card. So we have to really try to figure out how much takedown upside trumps inside the distance lines. What we're going to do is we're just going to go up fight by fight and get an idea of what these metrics look like. And then what we're going to do is a little later in the week, maybe do an update on how this all looks. And then again, haven't done a betting breakdown in a while. Maybe we'll do that. And then certainly Saturday morning or late Friday night, we'll do my favorite, which is the lineup construction video, where we focus in on nothing but winning the big 100,000 or 200,000 first prize in the big GPP. Uh, as far as scheduling goes, there's a couple of fights that got reworked. One of them has one of the fighters still with a salary, and the other one is completely absent of salary. Like Zach Reese was supposed to be fighting Cedric Dumas, and Dumas got taken out, and Dumas was replaced with extremely strong fighter. And as a result, Zach Reese now, even though he's 8,800, he is priced, he's about a 2-1 underdog. So from a money line perspective, it's extremely a poor play. Now, if he didn't have all kinds of finishing upside, he'd almost be a toss. But because he has finishing upside, he's still going to be in play. Because again, we can't just look at, okay, he's 200 to win and plus 200 to win, he's 8,800. We just have to look at his inside the distance line. And I think that when the inside the distance line comes out, maybe it's probably still not going to be good enough, because what's the best he's going to be? If he's 2-1 to finish, if he's 2-1 to win. I mean, at best he's 2-1 to finish, and even that's not going to be good enough at 8,800. So what am I talking about? And it's not as if you're going to be getting all kinds of leverage against Bekoev, because he's going to be getting a fair price, because he hasn't, they haven't given him a price yet. But at 2-1, I imagine that when we look at these prices, we'll be able to predict where he's going to be. Yeah, they're going to slide him right in 9,100, I believe. The only thing that might, no, he's going to be 9,100, and I know he's going to be 8,800 also. So we'll get to that in a second. Actually, this is kind of interesting. I think they're going to have to make two fighters, well, maybe not. I was about to say they're going to have to make two fighters the same price, but I think they won't. What we have here is you have this other fight, uh, Guskov versus Billy Elikana, who and Elikana stepped in when Johnny Walker pulled out, and I thought that Guskov had a salary, but I guess he didn't. Um, so they're going to have to price this whole thing, and I think that with Guskov being a 3-1 underdog, where can they put him? I don't know. I don't think there's any rule that they can't have two fighters the same price, because if they don't, then I don't know what they're going to do with these two guys. Excuse me, that being Guskov and what's his name, Bikoev. I mean, if they make Bakoev at 2-1, only 8,500, that's not going to be very fun. I mean, he's going to be just so chalky. But they might. Again, I don't know. I don't think it's a rule. They have to have one salary spot for each fighter. I seem to recall recently they had others. But if they do have to put one guy in each slot, then you're going to get 8,500 boost. What's his name? You get 8,500 uh, Guskov at 2-1, or Bekoev at 2-1, which is going to be pretty insane. And then I guess they're going to have to slide Guskov at minus 300 into 9,100, and that is, let's take a look at that inside the distance line already. Guskov inside minus 175. He's going to look like a really good play. Excuse me. So I guess I could have waited to see what the prices were, but I think it's healthy to at least take a quick early look. But I think both of those fighters, if they have to get slid into open slots, they're both going to be extremely strong. 9,100 for Guskov is going to be strong, and 8,500 for Bekoev is going to be uber strong. The other thing we have to think about is the fact that we have two 5-round fights, and you have a Marab slate. And what a Marab slate means is that even though he is the underdog, he's going to be extremely popular because every single time that he wins, he scores through the roof. I mean, he's optimal all the time. And at 7K specifically, if he's going to win a 5-round fight here against Umar, there's just no way that he's not going to be optimal. So if you do the math, if he's about 25% to win, maybe a little bit more, 25% of the time he's optimal, that's an extremely strong play. But keep something in mind that 75% of the time he does lose. You wouldn't think that because he never has lost. But based on these odds, 25% of the time, 75% of the time he is going to lose. And then you have Sarukian against Makhachev. Again, 5 rounds with a lot of activity. Now, what you might hear as far as content goes in the next week is trends regarding slates with multiple 5-round fights. And what you're going to hear, I mean, again, it's I would say a sample size issue, but it's also, coincidence, bias, whatever, is that usually you're going to want to play one of the 2 5-round fights to try to get a good mix of optimal versus whatever. It obviously just completely depends. The last time I think I faced this was back in September when you had another Marab slate, when you had Marab and Valentina, which were just two just uber jams, and what we tried to do was get a little bit different by only playing one of them, but it didn't matter. I mean, like the 2 of them scored 135 points each, and that was the end of that. But this particular slate, it's not quite as clear. I don't believe that the Makhachev fight is necessarily going to be optimal. I think that there are, first of all, plenty of variations where Makhachev wins, which doesn't score all that much. When I say all that much, I mean, it's going to score 100 probably, but it's not going to score like 120 or 130. All those like 2nd round and 3rd round subs, I think bust as far as the optimal goes. And I think some amount of the 1st round finishes bust also. So I don't think that the Islam side is 100% going to be optimal. I think that it's more likely, it's more likely, but not a lock, right? That the Armin side is optimal. See, the thing is like Armin's victories, I mean, they could come in different ways, but Now that I think this through, I mean, how on earth does Sarukian win and not make optimal? I mean, if he's going to win inside the distance, he's only 7K. You know what I mean? Like he's not even. He's 6,800. He's going to be against a popular fighter, so all of his are going to be optimal. The difference between him and Marab is that he's less likely to win, but he's still about 23, 24, 22, 23% to win, which is how many other fighters can you say that 22% of the time they're going to be optimal? Um, not too many. I mean, not too many. So I feel that both of these main event underdogs are more likely, I guess, to be optimal than the main event favorites. I mean, Umar can he can get 100, you know, pretty easily. But what's 100 for you? You know, it's not that much. So that's a good. I think that's the deal with the main event. It's much more important to have the underdogs than the favorites there. It's kind of scrolling here. This fight, this Prohaska fight, is going to be very very important, just because again there's the inside the distance lines are not great throughout the card, and this one you have both of these guys, 160 or lower to finish, and their prices are very very favorable. I mean they're 8,200, 8K, and when those guys are plus 160 to finish, that's extremely important. So I think that that fight's going to be, you're going to want that. And when you have these last three fights, one, two, three, it's always kind of an interesting feeling to just know you're really not going to be live until late. Um, if like you have, I mean, if you played one favorite, one underdog from the main, and then somebody from this fight, you're not going to be winning all that much, but you'll know at least where you stand going into these last two. Moicano Dariush. This is one of a lot of fights that are going to be one based on who the better grappler is here. When you look at the inside the distance lines, like this is kind of really interesting. So Dariush inside is plus 265. Moicano inside, they're really about the same depending on where you go. Yet Dariush is 7,500. I mean, this has got to be a super strong underdog, no? And he's got grappling as well, along with Moicano. I mean, if you play like there's so many good plays on this slate because of all this grappling upside. It's just kind of crazy. This, either of these guys, you could end up leaving money on the table, which you really don't want to do in 14 fight cards, but there's like so many options here. They should really make this like 300,000 for first. That would be very nice because it's going to be hard. And this one, like Holland de Ritter, this one's nuts. You have both these guys like pretty strong inside the distance lines. Okay, Holland is better, but de Ritter has a takedown upside, and you look at the price. Let's see. I mean, this is these. You could almost make a case, like if I was going to say, you can make a case to just fade everything until the last five fights. But the problem is everything else is great too. But this Ritter Holland fight, I mean, who's better? What's a better play? I mean, they're both are so strong. Holland's metrics are great. De Ritter's got the takedown upside. The price is price to move. I mean, you get to Peyton Talbot, like for example, who's obviously the man. Okay, he's awesome. He's fast and all this stuff. against a 39-year-old guy, however old he is. I'm sure his inside the distance line is going to be, minus 300 or something like that. But let's just take a look. Minus 260. His round one was going to be minus 200. Let's see. Excuse me, plus 220. First of all, that's what he's going to need, and second of all, it might not even be enough. So in a weird, I think Talbot is almost like a full fade here, despite the fact that he's almost a lock, not almost a lock, but he's very, very likely to get 100. There's just too much upside everywhere else, I think. So at his price, the only problem with that logic is that if you can get a couple of these underdogs in here, then you'll be able to afford him pretty easily. But there's just no way that 100. Not saying there's no way, but the chance that he's the highest scorer on the slate is very small. I think so much upside everywhere. Like for example, like you have Jolton Almeida, who's got the ultimate combination. I mean, he's got the inside the distance line, minus what is this? Minus 250 and takedown upside. I mean, why would I would think I'd rather save the 500 and play him over Talbot. What about Spivak on the other side? I mean, Spivak plus 600 inside. I mean, how is he going to win? I just don't even see it. He's going to out wrestle him? I don't think so. Um, we're going to have to come up with more about this Bekoev guy as the props get released. Instinctively when this came out, I figured, when Zach Reese lost his opponent, I figured whoever he would be against, he'd be a 3-1 favorite, and he'd be a lock here. I mean, he would have a big, strong inside the distance line, but they gave him a killer. Apparently, I do think this line's going to come down, but yet still, you just can't get to 8,800 from a math perspective. Guskov, we already talked about. I mean, he's got a very strong inside the distance line, minus 175. Whatever his price is going to be, whether it be 9,100, God forbid they make him 8,500, he's going to look like a great play. Let me see what this Elikana dude's all about. Plus 400 inside. That's not terrible. Like if I knew that the Guskov was going to be really popular, I would take a shot at this guy. But I think the ownership's going to be so spread out that I don't think you get that kind of leverage. All right, Grant Dawson against Diego Ferreira. This is, Dawson with all the takedown upside in the world and the control time upside in the world, but without that much finishing metric here. Well, I shouldn't say plus 160, but at 9,400, that's or whatever he is, it's not going to be enough. I mean, Ferreira put on quite a show against Rebecca in his last outing. So if he could stuff the takedown somehow, he's extremely live. Plus 385. I mean, get you some leverage over some pretty popular cheapos, but it's going to be tough. But think about it. Like if in fact the two main event favorites win, then you're going to need some underdog to come in, and Pereira is just as good as anybody else. Like if he can go ahead and stuff the takedowns, he's extremely live here at 7,200. And then fight 10, I guess that's what's going to be the Buskov fight. Aline Perez versus Carol Hossa. I think they both have takedown upside, more so Perez, but I think Hossa has got good subs at 8,600. Now she's kind of she doesn't really score all that well now that I think about it. I mean, I don't there's no way on a card like this I can get to these fighters. I mean, this was obviously really strong. I mean, her last however many performances, she's won 4 in a row, and she gets multiple takedowns in all of them. I guess it's kind of hard to. I mean, honestly, it's actually a really good play, right? We're looking for underdogs if these main event underdogs lose, which is going to happen a lot. I think Perez is very live here. I don't think that Hosa has enough, you know, upside at 8,600, but Perez at 7,600 certainly does. Oh, we have another genius favorite. I mean, Nakamura with probably a great upside as far as inside the distance and his takedown upside. What's his inside the distance? Minus 300? See, minus only plus 180? That's interesting. I should probably just bet that. That's a great bet, I think. But he's obviously really good. Takedown upside, decent inside the distance line. Not great, but decent. Tercios against Sopaj. So let's see what Sopaj's inside the distance line is here. And plus 195, again, like the inside the distance line of some of these guys just not going to do it, you know. At 9,300, it just doesn't exist. And as a result, Turkios, I mean, Turkios isn't bad as far as an underdog goes, but I wish that I knew more people would be taking Sopaj, we can get some leverage. So, and then like right out of the gate, you have two wrestlers just going at it. You know, Ulan Beckhoff against Clayton Carpenter. I mean, usually this doesn't work out so great. You know, usually these, I would say usually, at least that's what the anecdotal evidence is that you have these two wrestlers going after each other. They might cancel each other out, unless one is that much better than the other. I couldn't say that Ulan Beckhoff is that much better than Clayton Carpenter, but yet he's a 3-1 up favorite. But his inside the distance line is just brutal, right? Plus 210. That's just not going to work. And unless I knew that he was going to really get the better of Carpenter as far as the takedown upside, like for if you have an inside the distance line that week with that price, you've got to be really sure that you have that style edge that we see every week. You know, every week we see like grappler versus striker, so we'll know that if the person wins, they got the grappling win. Here, they could be just like a clinch fest or end up being a striking battle. So, I mean, if anybody, I guess I'd rather have the Carpenter side because I was about to say if he wins, he's definitely getting takedowns, but I don't even know if that's the case. So this is definitely a tough card. But if I had to put my finger on it, like right now, I mean, you know what you could do? I mean, quite honestly, you could root for the two favorites and just not play them in DFS. I mean, I think that is actually an idea. You play these mid-range guys, you know, the DeRitters, the Prohashkas, the Dariushs, and then you play maybe, you know, one of these others like the Nakamuras, these real safe ones, like not either Nakamura, even Almeida, you know, and not play anything from those main events. You root for the favorites, okay? Because listen, if those underdogs wins, you lose. You know what I mean? They're going to be optimal. If Marab wins, it's over. And normally, I would say also that Marab's got a chance to make the optimal if he loses. You know, he could get 80 if he loses. Um, but it's a big card, man. I don't know if I can go for that. And you have mid-range fights with good inside the distance lines. You could even do this. You know what I mean? Something like this. You play two studs, then something like that, and then pick one of those other underdogs we liked or we even thought about, like Bahia, you know, uh, Carpenter maybe, something like that. You know, make one little change and get to Perez. And what you could do is completely fade the main events. Remember, when you're fading them, what you're really doing is rooting for the underdogs. I mean, for the favorites. Um, That would be my instinct right now. And I'll tell you this, that's certainly going to be unique. That's certainly going to be unique to just not play the main events. Because if you do play the main events, I think it's much more important to play the underdogs than the favorites. So that would be my instinct as of Wednesday. That's like before pricing comes out and all that stuff. That's going to do it. I hope to do a follow-up within the next day or two. It's when prices come out. And that's it for now.